So, hello everybody. And today we are here. My name is Sarah Falber. I am one of the career counselors at Framingham State. And today we are going to talk about how to prepare for a virtual career fair. And we are going to tailor it to the College of Business, although many of the things that you will hear today can relate to a lot of different industries and different majors. So please be aware that this can be very helpful to a lot of people. And it's very appropriate that we are doing this through a virtual mode, because really during these crazy times, remote is really the thing. So being able to prepare for the virtual career fair like this is very helpful. And I'm having a glitch again. So the first thing is to know that there might be some technical difficulties and how to deal with them. And so right now, my screen has frozen. Yeah?
Sarah, sometimes if you stop sharing and then reshare, that kind of breaks it
So
up.
if I stop share, yes.
And then you reshare, and that sometimes that fixes it.
So take this off, I'll sit down again. Yes. And it's going to be right there. Should be that one. And usually I hit that. Which one did you hit? Page down? This one. Okay, terrific. So, yes, how do you deal with technological glitches? We were lucky that we had another career counselor who could help us. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but thank you very much to co-career counselor Emily. So, a little bit about career services. We are here to support you and your career goals. We are still here, even if it's virtually. You can connect with us, phone, video chat. We are here for students, an alumni, and our employer partners, and we are available from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, if you make an appointment through Starfish. What are some of the things that we do? We are here for those virtual appointments. We help with resume and cover letter review. Some people come to us early on when they really don't know what they want to major in, what they want to do, so we can help you determine some of your values, interests, personality, and skills. I call them VIPs. They're going to help you very much along the way. We help with internship and job search guidance, interview prep, grad school application support, and we also have virtual events and presentations. We have presentations on YouTube. We have employer showcases that are virtual. So we really have a wide array of things that we still provide for you. One of the most important things that I want to talk about is Handshake. And Handshake is our very own jobs postings database. And we will have all our events on Handshake. It is sort of like an Indeed or a Monster, but it is tailored to you, because the people who sign up on Handshake are looking for Framingham State University students. It is very important that you know about this, because you can register for the fair on Handshake. And right now, the virtual fair that we are going to be having is through the Handshake platform. So that's something that's very important to know. Making an account on Handshake is very easy. You go to that website, you sort of fill out a few different questions, and you will have your account, which then you can register for the fair. So we are here to talk about the virtual career fair for the College of Business. I have a typo, excuse me, right there. It will be Tuesday, October 6th from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. And you can again register on Handshake. So how do you need to prepare for a virtual fair? After you've set up your account, you can register for the fair on Handshake. It's then very important that you research the organizations and employers that are going to be at the fair. You can see on Handshake who will be attending. And again, it's very important to know something about the organizations. And then it's also going to be very important for you to know yourself, and that's those VIPs that I talked about. You also will then need to create or update your resume and have it reviewed by a career counselor. You want to craft an elevator pitch and practice some interview, both questions and responses. You need to know how to prepare your space and yourself for the virtual event. And then finally, it's understanding some best practices on how to write thank you notes after the fair. And so I am going to be talking about a little bit about all of these things throughout this presentation. Before I get to that, I just want you to think about what employers are looking for when they want new hires. And here is a list of some of the skills that employers are saying they want. This is part of knowing about yourself. Do you have good communication skills? Do you need to work on those? Have you ever had an experience where you've had computer or interpersonal abilities? So have you ever had to have leadership or management experience? These are things that employers are looking for right now, and that at the virtual fair, the way you present yourself and how you communicate yourself is going to show them that you have some of these skills. And I am frozen again. Frozen again.
I just hit the arrow.
I'm trying, keep trying. Okay. So then there's also some values that employers are looking for. And again, these are going to be some of the things that you are going to want to get across, that you're able to adapt, you're able to have a positive attitude when things don't go well, that you're able to be professional, that you have self-confidence. These are all things that you want to, in the way that you present yourself and the way that you present your application materials, these are going to come across. Another thing that I want you to think about are your skills in working remotely, and be prepared to talk about what you've, in your learning experiences, you have been remote learners since last March, and or some of you since last March. And so the projects that you've been doing, working on Zoom meetings, these are the type of things that employers are probably going to want to know that you are familiar with. And some of the new sort of professionalism that I talk about is working in this environment, thinking out of the box, being able to deal with technological difficulties, thinking of the greater good of the team rather than your individual status. And these are just some of the things that when we talk about, when you make an appointment with us, we can talk about where you have had to learn some of these things that you can then show the employer. So that was learning. You have to learn a little bit about you. You also need to research the organizations. And the reason you want to research the organization is because you want to show that you fit with what the organization wants you to be able to do, both in their culture, both in what they want you to do at the job. And so this is done beforehand, and it's done in a variety of ways. And again, we can help you figure out where to look to find out about the organization, whether it's going through networking, whether it's looking at their mission statement, at their website, and looking at the job description. That's something you want to research beforehand. So some of the top tips that I want to give you for working a virtual career fair. So first of all, you have done a little bit of research on yourself. What do you know about you? You've done a little bit of research on the company itself. Who are they? What they're looking for? And these are some of the things that are actually very, very important. You want to make sure that your space is quiet and distraction-free. Distraction-free is very, very important for a couple of reasons. First of all, you want the employer at the virtual fair to know that they are looking just at you, not at papers on your background or your dishes or noises. You want them to be able to have that conversation with you. And second, it really shows that you are very serious about the virtual fair experience. So you want to tell your roommates that you don't want to be distracted. You want to put your pets away if you can. That's a very, very important thing. You need to test your equipment. I had a little bit of a malfunction before. I have tested this several times. Unfortunately, there was still a glitch. I think one of the things that you learn through working this is that you are able to handle these malfunctions. But it's always better not to have any malfunctions. So the more you test beforehand and the more that you can make sure that things run smoothly, that's going to make you feel comfortable, and it's also going to show the employer that you know what you're doing. I always say to have a glass of water or something near you because you might get a little bit dry mouth, and so that's always helpful. Dress for success from head to toe. So that means not having sweatpants on the bottom and a nice shirt on top. Again, not only is it that you want to take this seriously, but you'll speak more confidently if you're dressed that way. And who knows if there's a malfunction and the computer goes down to your legs and you're wearing sweatpants. You don't want that to happen. So it's good for you, and it also makes you more confident looking. Using professional communication just as you would in any personal event, or in-person event, and that is using correct language, trying not to use ums and likes, and that includes your chat room responses. Now in virtual mode, you might be on a chat somewhere, and you still want to use the proper written communication. Making eye contact is very important. It is a little bit harder on a screen, and it is actually looking at that little white light that is straight ahead of you, sometimes rather than looking at the screen, but still it's very, very important to do that. Engaging with the employer that you are talking with. Any interview, any kind of networking event or virtual fair, it's a conversation. That's really what you want to be able to have with the employer. So making sure that your verbal and nonverbal communication cues are appropriate. You might not want to sit like this, where you could portray that you're a little bit bored. And especially, this is a really big one, when you are at a virtual fair, do not have your visual off. They want to see your face in the way that they can. You want to make a connection. That's really what you're at a networking or virtual fair for. And if the only way to do that is through a screen, having a blank screen there is not the way to do that. After the fair, you are definitely going to want to send a thank you note via email, most likely, and it's who you spoke to. And it's just, again, maintaining that connection. It's a little bit of a follow-up. If you were so impressed with the organization, or they were impressed with you, that you want to send a resume or a cover letter, this is the way that you can have that communication. And it's fine to send an email within about 24 hours. It can be done 2 days later too, but not much after. you greet the person professionally, you mention something of the conversation that you had, and what the next step might be, whether it's applying, whether it's just simply thanking them for their time, and you look forward to a connection maybe in the future. But again, we can always help you with how to write one of these thank you notes if you meet with one of the career counselors. So I don't know if any of you have a resume right now, but it would be wonderful if you had a resume to, quote, bring to the virtual fair, whether or not it's having it next to you, because the resume, the purpose of the resume is really to get the employer to want to bring you in for the job. But it's also the main talking point. When you are talking about yourself, you're going to talk about things on your resume, whether it be at an interview, whether it be at a networking event, whether it be at a virtual fair. So I am going to talk about a lot of things and best practices for resumes, but really, again, please make an appointment with one of the career counselors and we can tailor something specifically to you. So here are some basics. I've got a lot of them. Never, ever, ever use a template. You want it to be one page for now. There's no high school after sophomore year. The main headings are going to be your contact, education, and experience, but there are other headings that you can use, and I will speak to some of those with respect to business. Right now, you really want to be standard and traditional. This is not the place to get overly creative or using very busy font. And a lot of that is, one, it's a professional document, but two, you want to make it very, very easily read. Right now, we really don't think about having an objective or a summary. That's something that may be at another time, but right now, that's not what we use. Please know that it takes time and several versions. You can't just do it in an hour because there's a lot to think about. You always want to think from the employer's perspective, because really it's how can you do the job that they want you to do? And that means you need to be targeted and relevant, because once again, it's all about fit. Do you fit with the employer? You want to use some key words of the industry, and I will give you some examples of that later. And because you want everything to be easily read, you want to use some of those emphasis modes like caps and bolds and italics for emphasis, but you want to use them wisely, and you don't want too much of them because otherwise it'll be too busy. And consistency is very, very important. So whether it's with tenses, whether it's with using periods, whether it's how you put down your headings or the places and things like that, everything needs to be consistent. Your experiences in a resume are going to include both paid and unpaid. So don't worry if you don't think that you have business experience right now. You might have had some experiences in clubs or coursework or through volunteer work where you have gained some of those skills and competencies that I talked about earlier that we can put in the resume. And important information is usually read from top to bottom. So that's not only with the headings that you use, but it's also within a heading and your bullets. You're going to want to have it important information from top to bottom. Something very important is that it's honest and accurate. Every word is fair game on a resume for an employer to talk about. So you want it to be honest and accurate so that you feel comfortable talking about it, but also so that if you do get to a position and you've said something that hasn't been truthful, then you're not going to feel as good at the position or at the interview speaking about it. Trying not to repeat words, so the thesaurus is your friend, and when you use verbs to write in your bullets to show your skills, you can use the thesaurus, and that will help you come up with different verbs to describe similar types of things. Most resumes will be in reverse chronological order right now, which means that you put what you've done most recent and then what you've done in the past. We do not, as I said, we don't go as far back as kindergarten or even high school really. But again, when you come to me or one of the career counselors and we talk about your personal resume, these all can come into play and are much more easily explained. And we don't use references. That's just not something that's used right now. I mentioned strong bullet points. That means that when you talk about your experiences, we're not going to write sentences or paragraphs or use ing words and pronouns. And again, how you write a strong bullet sentence, I have a couple of examples right after this. One of the things I talk about is you want to quantify and qualify your experiences. Quantify is often numbers. How many of something did you do? Did you do something weekly? And qualifying, that's often where you can show some of those attributes. Did you do something patiently or did you do something quickly? It's very important to follow all of the employer's instructions carefully and exactly. This is your first work product, so they are going to not want to see any mistakes of any kind. You might have been working on this resume over and over, so you don't notice something, but someone with new eyes sees a mistake. And I'm not saying that a perfect resume automatically gets you the job, but a bad resume with mistakes could maybe put you in that no pile. So some things to think about specifically for business. Did you ever train anyone when you worked at Stop and Shop? Did you organize data in a class? Did you solve issues with angry customers? Did you get promoted or were you selected for an award? Did you oversee money at a club? Did you take accurate notes at a meeting and then distribute them via Zoom? Did you ever make suggestions using clear and good communications? Did you learn a new computer language or did you make flyers? Did you balance a cash register or make a presentation? These are all kind of things to think about, not only in making your resume, but also before the fair, because in your experiences, these are the kind of things that you want to show those business employers that you know how to do. And again, these are just some action verbs that I was talking about: explained, wrote, created, clarified, managed, led. As you can see, some of the ones on across are all similar words for manage, lead, oversee, and ran. Those are all similar. Decoded, solved issues, created a website. These are all things that you can say the same thing or similar thing in a different way. And finally, the accomplishment statements are where you amplify and you, it's not simply the statement, you quickly resolved the customer complaints after attentively listening, or you oversaw a $750 budget and you allocated funds, you promoted to current position, you pleasantly answered phones. So this is how we create those accomplishment statements and those bullet points that are going to be so important for the resume. So please come to the career service, please make an appointment through Starfish to meet with one of the career counselors and we can help you develop that resume. It seems like there's a lot of information that I've given you, but really when we do it in practice, it definitely becomes a little easier. And as I said before, there are many subheadings for business that you can use, whether it's business experience, finance experience, leadership experience, office experience, social media experience. These are all really going to depend on what the company is looking for and what the job description wants. So the one size fits all resume doesn't always work. So that was an awful lot on resumes. Now we're going to talk a little bit briefly about cover letters. So the cover letter is that one-page document that you give along with your resume most of the time. And sometimes you can explain a little more from your resume. Sometimes it can enhance the bullet statements. Sometimes it can explain something that you couldn't explain on your resume. And it also is a very good example of your written communication skills. Will employers read a cover letter? Not always. We don't know. I know that it's I read it first, even before a resume. Some employers might go straight to the resume, but whatever the case is, we don't know. So write one, make it a good one, and always include it if you can. So another few of these basics. It takes time. It's not always easy to write because sometimes it's hard to write about ourselves, and tooting your own horn in a cover letter sometimes can be a little bit difficult for students. But again, think from the employer's perspective, and the general cover letter, a one-size-fits-all, doesn't always work. But think, what can you do for that employer, and how can you explain it in the most concise, clear way? Again, some of the best practices, and some of them are similar to the resume. We never want to use a template. You don't want to have too many words, make it too long, but you also don't want it there to be too much white space. We want the employer to know that this cover letter belongs to this resume, so the same font, print, and heading as the resume. And if you're sending it via email, a PDF document is usually the best, so there are no changes in how it looks when you send it. You want to refer to your resume, but not repeat it. You want to enhance the resume, not just say the same thing over and over again. It's usually going to be one page, 3 to 4 paragraphs. When I say no fluff, it's really, you want to connect yourself to that employer as much as you possibly can. So being generic or vague is probably not the most effective. You want to be professional, so that means it's not the same as writing to your roommate or a friend, so you don't want to be too personal or friendly. And it is the time to toot your own horn, but again, you don't want to sound cocky and you don't want to misrepresent yourself. So it's very important to show your accomplishments, but you don't want to make out something more than actually what you are. One of the things that is very difficult, because you're writing about yourself, but try not to start every sentence with the word I. And again, you want to proofread. You don't want there to be any mistakes. It really needs to represent who you are. So you want it to sound like you. You don't want it to be overly, it needs to represent you. When they bring you in for the interview or they read your resume, they want to know that you are the person who wrote the letter. And again, be able to speak about every word or action that you have in your letter. You don't want to have anything in there that either isn't important or that, again, really isn't expressing your abilities correctly. There are the formats, and salutation means who you are addressing. So there is a format if it's a separate document, or you're attaching it, and there's another, I call it a less formal format if it's part of an email. There is no more to whom it may concern. You can do some research to figure out who you are saying dear so-and-so to, whether it be the hiring manager, the selection committee, the talent acquisition team. You could make a phone call to the company and see whether or not you can say, I'm writing a cover letter, to whom should I address it? And the company might be able to help you with that. I actually prefer that the cover letter is part of the email, because once again, if they're looking at the email, it's right there. If it's in a separate attachment, they might simply go to the resume. So I usually like to put the cover letter in the body of the email. So the content for the cover letter, the first paragraph is usually why them. Why do you want to work for this particular company? So where did you find this position? Did you find it in Handshake? Did you meet someone at our virtual fair? Did you meet someone through networking? Did someone in your personal network send you to this job? So where you found the position and why this job appeals to you so much specifically. So this is where you know something about the company, something about you, and what about it? Does it relate? Is there something in the job description? Do they have a mentor situation and you think that's really terrific? Is it a very large company that has a global sort of presence and that's really wonderful for you? Is it something that's a smaller company where there's one-on-one and you feel that you can learn something in a one-on-one situation and that makes it really particularly interesting to you? Do they work with a particular population? Do they work with a particular product? What about them really intrigues and it interests you? And then the next 2 or 3 paragraphs is the why you. So you've got why them, but now why you. And this is where you are going to demonstrate a skill that you have learned somewhere and how that can enable you to do the job that they are looking for. So when you were in a club and you attended meetings, you increased your ability of teamwork. Or when you were in the admissions office and you gave tours, you enhanced your communication skills. And all of these things will allow you to be able to do what that employer wants you to do. And then finally, the conclusion is thank them for their consideration and try to arrange for further contact if possible and your interest in a meeting. So your resume and cover letter have been read and they like you. And now what happens? You've been asked for the interview. That's terrific. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk about right now for interviewing are going to apply to how you're going to speak with someone at the virtual career fair. So again, interviewing is where you can express in person or virtually in person through your connection that you are a good fit. So what is the best, some of the things that employers really want from their interviewers? They want you to show confidence. That is very, very hard to do. Some of the way you show confidence is how you speak, speaking professionally. It's how you dress. It's the appearance. It's going to be your surroundings, how your surroundings appear. It's also going to be how you present your marketable skills. And that is both what I talked about previously, or I mentioned previously. It's your skills that are important for the particular job that you are going to. It is your remote skills. It's also some of those skills, your competencies that you have developed. And so how do you actually talk about those skills? Good interviewers are well prepared. You've practiced. You've practiced your technology, you've practiced answering questions, and you really know how to make good first impressions. And all of this is going to be very applicable at the virtual fair. So I said here a video interview at a video virtual fair. Practice your technology, very important. Look at the camera, not the screen. Dress from head to toe. Prepare your setting for sound and what's on your walls. This should be the only program that's on your computer right now, and tell everyone that you're going to be on an important call or meeting for this time. This is really the norm right now. Someday, maybe there will be in-person interviews again, but for now, this is really the way of how things are happening. And so even something like how you greet someone is going to be a little different in this video arrangement. No longer is it going to be a handshake, but you might have to say, hello, nice to see you. There could be a different type of greeting that you use in this virtual scenario. So how do you present yourself at an interview or at a virtual fair? You want to have good posture and eye contact, sit up straight, be well dressed. You want to arrive, I use that with quotes, a few minutes early, but not too early. If you're too early, you could get nervous. If you're too early, you don't know if the host is there and sees you there. But you don't want to be late. So you know, 5 or 10 minutes beforehand, just so you know that everything is set up well, that's terrific. You want to speak well, no ums and likes and you knows. Those things are very, very difficult, but it's something that's very important. No cell phones or electronics. Again, that goes to the distractions piece. We don't want anything for you to look away or to have the employer who's speaking with you to be distracted on their train of thought. And really smiling, it makes everyone feel better. It makes you feel better. It makes the employer that you're speaking to feel better. And once again, it's making that connection and trying to make a good impression so that they will remember you later on. At a virtual fair or during an interview, you are going to probably have to create and communicate what we call an elevator pitch. It is that 30-second infomercial. If you think of it in business terms, you are the product and the employer is the consumer, the one who wants that product, and your elevator pitch and your interview skills and your resume and your cover letter are all of those things that are going to sell you so that this particular employer wants to pick you. It's going to be quick. It's going to be uncomplicated. You want to talk about yourself. It's not going to be too long, but essentially it's a small introduction. Where you are right now, who you are, what your major is, what year you are. Maybe there's a small something about a specific strength or a qualification. I sometimes say it's something particularly interesting about you. And then a little bit about so that they want to speak to you more. And then a little bit about what your short-term goals are and maybe even what your long-term goal might be. And once again, it's coming to or meeting with a career counselor. We have ways to help you develop that elevator pitch. The more you say it, the more it's going to be easier to do in different situations. You don't want it to be memorized, but you do want it to be rehearsed. So, and if you've done your research on the company, then you might be able to tailor your elevator pitch a little bit to that particular company. I want to talk very quickly about the types of interview questions that you might get at interviews. There's no real right or wrong answer other than the one of walk me through your resume probably, but why did you choose business as a profession? How do you feel about remote work? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? The employer wants to get to know you as a person to see if you are a good fit in their situation. So they want to know how you speak. Some of these answers might be different for different people. So what you say, it's less important the content of it, but really how you say it. Walk me through your resume. Once again, that's not repeating everything in your resume, but they might want to know what are the areas that you would like to talk about, and they also might have some highlights that they want to talk about. Very important again about remote work, and think about that because that's really what we're doing right now. We want to use your resume as evidence for statements that you are going to make. The next type of question that you might get would be, what do you know about the organization? So this is where all of that research will come in helpful. How well do you know this organization? Do you know our products or our customers? Why did you pick this company? How do you keep up with the latest trends that are happening now in this industry? There is no way that we can anticipate every question before an interview, but I do think that there could be questions about what you know about their organization. They also might want to know overall fit. So why should we hire you specifically? What can you contribute to this position? Tell me something about you that's not on your resume. I have people think about 5 words or themes that often describe them. And for me, sometimes I use the word curious. And because of that, I then can, when I'm speaking to people, I can bring that theme into a lot of different directions. And that's why someone can hire, me specifically, because I'm curious about learning more, or I'm curious about new people. So think of those things for yourself. And there usually is a strength and weakness question, and we want those to be appropriate, relevant strengths and weaknesses. Some people have a hard time thinking of their strengths and or their weaknesses. Once again, we can help you with all of that. The other type of question that you might have at an interview is, tell me about a time when. These we call behavioral questions, because the best predictor of future behavior is probably what you've done in the past. So tell me about a time when. Describe a situation where. Give me an example of. And this can be on anything. It can be on a particular skill. It can also be on some of those competencies and that I spoke about before. And there's a particular way to answer those questions of, tell me about a time when, and we call it STAR, and that is the situation or task, your actions and the results. That's a lot of information. Come to see us for a mock interview, and we can help you practice that STAR method. The other type of question is getting to know your skills. So with respect to business, it could be, have you ever led a Zoom have you ever led a group project? How often have you used social media? How familiar are you with a certain software? What sales techniques have you ever used? So they want to know, they might say, rate your ability on Excel from 1 to 10. So these are things where, again, you knowing you, like I mentioned before, is very, very important. And being able to communicate that is very, very important. At an interview or at a virtual fair, knowing when to stop is really important as well. So the best interviews, the best connections that you're going to make at a virtual fair are going to be conversations, even more than the one person asks a question and one person gives an answer. But you don't want to ramble on and on. So knowing when to stop, knowing when you've given the appropriate amount of information, and then knowing when to stop. And there might be a little bit of a pause, but pauses are sometimes okay. Always important at an interview, and even when you're going to a virtual fair, questions for the employer, questions for the person that you are speaking to. In an interview, you're never going to ask about benefits or salary, but you might want to ask what kind of qualities make a person successful in this position. What kind of training or mentor possibilities will there be? In this day and age, you might say, will there be any in-person contact, or will it be a completely remote opportunity? If so, how will I make myself connected when it is completely remote? So these are all the things that you might want to think about. And you also, just one other thing, you might want to ask a question during an interview or during a virtual fair of something that you spoke about in that conversation. So two things, if they've said something in the conversation and you want them to add more information about that, terrific, ask that kind of question. If in fact you've researched something from their website and they haven't spoken about it, you can then ask, oh, I've looked at your website. Could you please talk about that for a little bit? Again, thank you letters are a must. I think that if an employer does not receive a thank you note, they are going to think you are just not interested in that position. And if you do write a proper, really good thank you letter, I think it could make the difference. Your interview might not have been as great as you had wanted, but that thank you note, you might be able to show your communication skills in a written form, or you might be able to say something that you didn't get to say actually at the interview. Send it to everyone you've interviewed with or everyone that you meet at a virtual fair, but don't send the same one to everybody. It will probably be changed. And just like the virtual fair, you want to know who to address it to, and similar to how you're going to write it to the virtual fair. And now I have just given you so much information. I am going to hand the baton to our wonderful internship coordinator, Jill Gardosic.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm just going to talk to you all for a few minutes. I'm going to give you some information on different roles that we need to have when you're thinking about internships. And I'm going to very briefly highlight 3 programs that exist. So a lot of students start off, they have some questions for me. They're unsure of how career services can help them. So we're here to really help you with that preparation piece. You don't have to just meet with me, even though my title is Internship Coordinator. You can meet with any of the career counselors on staff as well. We all handle the same types of appointments. We can assist you with all of those preparation pieces that Sarah was just talking about. You know, a resume critique, a cover letter critique. If you'd like to do some practice interviewing with us, we're there to help out. Just know that if you plan to earn academic credit for your internship, that's a conversation you want to make sure you have with your academic advisor. They're the ones helping you make those determinations when you're picking courses for your upcoming semester about whether or not internship makes sense in that semester given your gen ed requirements, your free electives, the major classes that you need. They're going to make sure that you've met all the prerequisites for the course, and any internship that you find, they're going to help determine if that is in fact meaningful enough for you to earn academic credit. Excellent. If we could just go to the next slide. So what is your role in this process? You first want to begin by figuring out what is it that you're interested in doing for a career once you've completed your degree. And here in Career Services, we're able to help you with that process. There's a lot of great tools that we have, like Focus 2. We can have some discussions about what types of careers you're interested in. And then again, once you're ready, you are going to be the one to search, apply, interview, and even accept your position. One thing that we like to stress is make sure that if you're accepting an internship position, there's no turning back. You don't want to renege on an offer. That looks very unprofessional. It's like you're burning a bridge. You know, the interviewer, the company, they've spent a lot of time, money, and energy and effort into their hiring process and interviewing candidates, and you're really leaving them in a bad position. You want to be able to complete and honor the commitment that you've made. Something else to consider in this day and age, there's still a fair mix of internships that are paid while some still are unpaid. So just be sure that if you're looking at unpaid internship opportunities, make sure that this is something that you can afford you know, to take. It might mean adjusting a part-time job. If you're typically doing 20 hours a week at a part-time job, you may have to scale back to 15 hours a week or so to accommodate an internship opportunity. So we're just going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to touch on the first of 3 programs that I just want to highlight for your attention. I oversee and I administer a program where students can participate in a wonderful internship through the Washington Center. It's similar to if you had ever thought about maybe studying abroad for a semester. What you would do in this program is you would head to Washington, D.C., and you would earn 4 course credits at Framingham State University for your experience. It's a 3-part program while you're down there. You spend 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday doing about 30 hours of work at your internship site. You take 1 evening class for 3 hours a week. And then on Fridays, you have professional development opportunities where you're working in small and large groups and participating in networking activities. And I just wanted to point out that there's going to be an upcoming information session in just a few weeks. You can find all the information on our Instagram account, our Twitter account, our LinkedIn account, all over our website on Wednesday, October 14th from 12:30 to 2:30. Myself and a representative from the Washington Center are going to host an info session, and we'll be able to answer all of your specific questions at that time. So that's going to be a really great opportunity. If we could go to the next slide, thank you. The second program that I had wanted to mention is a program that I administer. You might have heard of it, especially if you're upperclassmen or if you have some upper class classmates. I oversee the Choice program. It's a really great funding source where if you're enrolled in an internship course at FSU to be earning academic credit for your internship experience, and that internship happens to be at a nonprofit, a government office, or even one of our own academic centers or institutes. Think of things like the John Stalker Institute or Merck on campus. These are all places where we may be able to get you a little bit of funding, a stipend for your internship experience. So you can go right to our website for that application, or feel free to make a meeting with me through Starfish or email me directly, and I'll put my email address in the chat in just a moment. You just want to be aware that this is funding that's awarded on a first come, first served basis to students that meet that student eligibility criteria, and you may not get money. So again, it really comes down to really having that brainstorming and that research done ahead of time. You want to make sure that just in case you're not eligible to earn the funding, you're still comfortable completing that internship as an unpaid experience. But this is a way for us to try to help you with some funding. And then last but not least, we're going to go to the next slide. We have an alternative program as well. One of the student eligibility requirements for Choice is that students need an overall GPA of a 2.75 or higher. And sometimes we've run into students who don't really meet that threshold. So luckily, we have another funding source in place through the Pathways program. So you may be able to earn funding for an internship opportunity even if you don't meet those choice requirements. The only difference is students participating in the Pathways program are going to complete 4 career counseling appointments with members of our staff throughout the semester. That way it'll help prepare them and strengthen their soft skills and their professional skills and their search skills for all their further internships and jobs to come. And that program is administered by a wonderful woman, someone we collaborate with on campus. She goes by Manny Gibson, and I've listed her contact details here for you. She's over in the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement office. So we just wanted to highlight to you that there's a couple different programs you might want to consider if you're thinking about interning either next semester, next summer, or next year if that's in your plans. Thanks, Sarah.
So that's it. That was an awful lot of information. I do want to stress your circumstances and your situation is unique, and it is when we work one-on-one, it all kind of comes together a little bit easier. So we have examples and handouts. So if there's anything that was said, but you would like more information on, please call the office, make an appointment through Starfish, and we are here to help, and we will be happy to meet with you. Thank you.